So this video is on using trig to find missing parts of a right triangle. So I have an example here. It's a 30, 60, 90. And I want to find out what x is. So I'm going to use trig, which means I need my calculator. So what I want to do is, whenever you say sine, cosine, or tangent, you're always talking about an angle. So because we have the 30 degrees here, I'm going to use a trig function with this angle. And it looks like I know I'm looking for the side that's just next to the angle, so adjacent. And this is my hypotenuse is 8. I know this is a hypotenuse because it's the longest side opposite the 90. So I'm going to use adjacent over hypotenuse, which is cosine. So I want the cosine of 30 degrees is going to equal my adjacent over my hypotenuse. So that's how you use trig. That's how you set these up. Your calculator knows what the cosine of 30 degrees is. If I want to find out what x is, algebraically you multiply both sides by 8. And you get x equals 8 times the cosine of 30. Again, this is a decimal answer multiplied by 8. Your calculator will do this for you. I don't have a calculator in front of me, but the answer comes out to be about 6.9. So when you punch it in your calculator, it will be 8 times cosine 30. Some calculators you'll do 30 cosine times 8. It depends on the calculator or your phone, so you'll have to mess around with that. Try it. Make sure again that you're in degrees, because we're talking about 30 degrees, and it ends up being 6.9. And that's how you find the missing side using trig. We don't have, if we were asked to find, oops, I'm sorry, that's not 6.9, this is 6.9. If we were asked to find this missing angle, we know that the sum has to be 180. So if this is 90 and this is 30, this has to be 60, right? So we learned that in geometry class. You could use now the Pythagorean theorem here to find this missing side, or you could use trig again if you wanted to, and you could say, let's say looking at this 30, opposite over hypotenuse. So you could say the sine of 30 degrees equals, we can call this y if we want to, y over 8. Multiply both sides by 8 and you'll get the answer, y equals, which is going to be 4, because I was saying to you in a previous video, on a 30 degree angle we know that the ratio of the opposite to the hypotenuse is always 1/2. So this always ends up being half the size of this for a 30 degree angle. So you can check that on your calculator. If you do 8 times sine 30 or sine 30 times 8, you'll get 4. So that's how long this side is. So that's using trig to find missing sides of a right triangle. It's got to be a right triangle. And I want to show you another example where rather than having missing sides, you have missing angles. So this is a little different. It's different how you punch it into your calculator. So let me see, come up with an example here. Let's say this is 5, and this is 12, and this is 13, and this is a right angle, of course, right here. And if we wanted to know how big, let's see, this angle here, let's say, we'll call this x. You could use sine, cosine, tangent. It doesn't really matter because you have all the sides. You can set up any ratio you want to. So let's just say sine of x. Remember, it's always sine of the angle, or cosine of the angle. It has to be the angle that you put next to the sine. So sine of x equals opposite over hypotenuse, 5 over 13. And your calculator knows what angle has this ratio of 5 to 13. It'll know exactly how many degrees this is. So the way you punch this in your calculator, you would do 5 divided by 13, you'll get a decimal answer. And then you have to hit, you're looking for this. On your phone it'll be there. You have to go into the second functions. You might have to hit second on your calculator. Some have inverse, sine, and then this should come up on your calculator. So what you're saying is you're not looking for the sine of some degree. You're saying what angle has this ratio. So you do 5 divided by 13, second or inverse, sine, and then it will give you the answer, which is 23 degrees. That's a rounded answer. It's going to come out to 22.61986 dot, 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 dot. And we'll just call that 23 degrees. We'll round our degree measures off. So your calculator knows that an angle of 22.61 has a ratio of 5 to 13. So your calculator can figure out a missing angle measure based on the ratio of the sides. And that's what trig is, using trig to find those missing sides. And it would have worked even if you had used cosine and said 12 over 13. You still would have gotten the same answer. You'd have a different ratio, but you'd be using cosine instead of sine, and your calculator would still know that that's 23 degrees. And again, if we wanted this other missing angle, we can just do 90 plus 23, subtract it from 180, and you'd get this missing piece. That's from geometry. Okay, so those are my examples on right triangle problems using trig.